Maters. I'm the area manager for the Southeast, and we just want to welcome you to the Cricket Victoria Club Development Series and really thank you for joining us. We think this is a really good time slot for people that are working on their lunch break and to learn a bit of stuff about how hopefully we can pass on some information about improving your cricket club. Everyone that's there, if you could just put in the side your name and your cricket club just on the side, so we know who's here. You know, we're really looking for input from everybody, and we really encourage engagement from everybody out there. So use the chat function. It's not about us telling you what to do. We know there's some really good ideas and some great knowledge out there that we want to draw from you and share it with everyone else. Another goal of our seminar is to ensure that you've got networks and resources that you need to support your club as well. So what I'll do is I'll start by introducing the team. We've got, I've already introduced myself. We've also got Emma Gallagher, who is the cricket manager for the Southeast area. And we've also got Alistair Burge, who's the cricket officer for the Southeast area. And we also have special guest Carl, who is the cricket officer from Southwest, who'll be participating. And you know, we're helping, the areas are helping each other out and using each other's skills and resources across the whole organisation to help to best support clubs. I might go on to acknowledgement of country now. While we are meeting online today and across a variety of locations, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of various lands from which we are all joining and pay our respects to elders present and emerging. I might hand over to Alistair for a bit of housekeeping now.
Yeah, so welcome again, everyone. For those that sort of missed it at the start, if you could please just remain on mute for the main session, just helps the flow and helps any sort of noise in the background if people are wherever people are joining from. Also, please keep your video off, just helps with the connection if anyone's got some poor internet. Please use the chat function for questions, which we can see a lot of you have already put in what cricket club you're from and where you're joining online, so thank you very much for that. If you've also got any questions, use the raise your hand function. And I've also started recording the session as well. So if there's anything you've missed, you can always watch back and pick some more things up. So I'll pass over to Carl, who is going to run through the agenda for the session.
Thanks, Al, and thanks everyone. So what we're going to cover through the session: attracting and retaining sponsors, effective and engaging fundraising activities, how to write successful grant applications. So a key aspect that we're looking at is ways to diversify your income streams so that we don't have all our eggs in one basket. And we're also going to look at some effective financial management controls. If we're going to put all this effort into raising and getting money, well, then we want to make sure that we use it wisely. So let's get started looking at sponsorship, and what we're going to work through is a process or a roadmap of how to go about setting yourself up to attract sponsors. The key point that I want to make is that we want partnerships to be mutually beneficial. That is where both parties get value. In the past, there's probably been instances where businesses have made a donation to community clubs where they give a sum of money but get little in return. So we really want to emphasise on how we can provide value to the potential sponsor. We also really want to emphasise the point of sponsorship retention. It's much easier to keep a sponsor than sign a new one. And if you can let us know in the chat, what have you done at these current times to connect and support your sponsors? If there's any initiatives or drives that you've done, we'd love to hear about them because we know it's a challenging time for small businesses. As you're popping some answers in there, a really important starting point is having clarity on who you are as a club. It makes the whole process a lot easier if you know who you are, because then you have an idea of who to go to. Many clubs underestimate their potential size and network for a prospective sponsor. They'll initially only look at their playing group, but your size will be much bigger than that. You've got past players, families, extended social media following, but you've also got some, I guess, intrinsic special things that might separate you from other cricket clubs or other sporting groups in your local area. And it's really important to be able to draw and highlight those aspects. My Cricket can be really good for getting some data on this information. So yes, you can get your playing group numbers, but you can also get information on the ages of your member base, or their cultural backgrounds, maybe the country that they were born, and things like that. So having some understanding about all of that data will really help with the further conversations. I like to use an example that if you were running a driving school business, well, then a cricket club can be a pretty attractive place if you can demonstrate the number of people you have living in that local area, if it has the right age demographic with parents and children around that 16 to 18 bracket. And if you can demonstrate that, that's going to go a long way.
So now that Carl's spoken a bit about who we are as clubs, I guess the next point is around what we offer, which a lot of that can be around actually how we connect to those people, connect our sponsors with those people who we have at our club. So what's some ideas from your clubs around what your assets are? What are the things that you can sell to sponsors that you can provide them with some value in? What are the ways that we can, as I say, connect those sponsors with the people at our club? So some examples might be, your traditional example might be, for example, signage. There we go. Steve Richards has just said advertising space on fences around the ground. Absolutely. And so signage is a really common one, and a really one that's seen to work. And signage can be more than that as well. Jason's put in about scoreboard space and clothing. We can actually bring it into the modern age and say signage can be online as well with our website. Do we have sponsor logos on our web pages? Electronic signage in the rooms, fantastic. Yeah, especially seeing clubs, you often see the TV above the bar, for example, where you can have sort of a rotating list of sponsors. The clothing one, yep, really good there, Sarah. Social media, as we've already spoken a little bit about that, and what a valuable way that can be to engage not only with our members but hopefully people outside of our club as well, which is really important to broaden our base. So some really good things. Fantasy cricket based on club players, like it, Vicky, nice. So some really good things coming through there. Carl, what have we got on our list?
Yeah, great, and I think we've touched on a number of these. So the signage and logos on clothing or scoreboards, fences, that sort of touches on the brand awareness. So that's certainly something that we can offer. We have assets, as you might term them, that we can offer to prospective sponsors to put their logos on, and that might lead to a sale. But I think that the key that we have is the access to our members and networks. If you're a sponsor, ultimately at some stage you're going to hope to get a return on your investment with sales. So if we have a member base, we want to demonstrate our ability to influence that group. So an example I would give is, if you sign a hairdresser or a butcher or whatever it might be, what are the chances that your members are actually going to change their behavior to use that service? And if you can demonstrate that, you'll be successful in attracting sponsors. So yes, brand awareness and sponsor signage can be good, but your ability to influence people is far greater.
I think the key one there, Carl, we've had some people coming through and talking about having sponsors present at Thursday night dinners, for example, which I think is a really good one. And I had a great conversation with a business owner who's connected with a club in the last couple of days, and he said about 80% of his tax return business is through cricket clubs that he's sponsored and has been involved in. So I think that's a really great insight into the value that we can offer sponsors.
That's a great example. And sort of leads on to social media engagement and that relationship building that you can connect with your sponsors. So yeah, getting photos or player of the week posts and getting your sponsors to connect in with those can be really good. Gags, you've got some background on a really good initiative that clubs can look at.
Is that the Geo Snapshot one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one I've recently come across. So it's one that I'd be interested to see results from clubs. But basically, it's an organisation that's providing an avenue for clubs to. A lot of clubs have people who take photos at their events and at their games, but often they get lost and they stay with the people that take the photos. And this is a way where the members within our club can upload them in one space and the club can access them. Then you've got some great photos that you can share with your sponsors. You can also actually put sponsor logos on them and actually get some sponsor exposure through that as well. And there's also a way that you can then if those people are happy to share the photos, the club can then sell the photos to the participants, so it can actually be a revenue raiser as well. So they've actually got a competition at the moment where if you load your best photo from your club, there's an opportunity to win a 6-month subscription through them. So worth having a quick look at that as well.
That's great. And the last point there is, yes, there are people out there that will contribute pretty much just because they might like to be contributing to the community, and that's all well and good, but our point here is that your chances will be vastly improved if you can demonstrate something tangible that you can offer in return.
Some terrific ideas coming through in the chat there, some really good ones like giving sponsor services away as prizes and those kind of things. So great stuff. And I think that slides neatly into this this element as well around what do we need as clubs, and sometimes this can actually then create opportunities in what we can offer, but what are the things that we're asking from sponsors to help us with as clubs? What are some of the things when we go to sponsors we're saying we need your help with this? There's probably the obvious one of a bit of cash, which is always top of the list, but probably think a bit further in that in what are we asking for that money for? And also, what are some other things that we might be asking sponsors to help us out with as a club? Has anyone got some examples of things that they've... Equipment, yes. No, yep, especially I think balls is often a big one, match day balls and other equipment. Yeah, absolutely, Steve. That's a very common one. And the other question there, what industries sponsor your club? So we've had examples coming through of hairdressers and accountants. Physio, yes, really good one there, Simon. Yeah, physio can be a really good one where we can actually ask them for their service as opposed to just asking for money, and a good way for them to demonstrate to people what their business can do. What have you got on the list there, Carl?
Yeah, so I think you touched on it, Gags, and for the parents out there, if you've got kids and they just say, hey, can I have some money? Are you just going to give it to them, or are you going to follow up with where's that money going? So again, having some clarity on what we need this money for, and I guess a question again, are your chances going to be improved by saying, oh, we need $2,000 to sign an overseas player, or we need $2,000 for uniforms to start up an all abilities team? So that understanding and just going that little bit further into demonstrating what you need can be really important. We've touched on cleaning supplies there, so we know that will be a potential challenge and increased expense in the season coming ahead. But I think I saw on Facebook the other day that Bunnings had supplied some cleaning equipment to a local group. I know some councils are supplying cleaning equipment. So there will be, like Gag said, some opportunities from being able to identify what you need. Also, let us know in the comments if you've been able to attract some in-kind donation from sponsors. So rather than asking for money, asking for some goods and services, and whether that has been a successful approach.
And that can link back then to what you can provide. So, for example, if you've got your local bakery supplying the bread for lunches, a little sign up at lunchtime on the table saying today's afternoon tea proudly supplied by Brighton Bakery. Then if people enjoy the lunch, then they might be more likely to go down and help out your sponsor as well. So those in-kind donations can actually be a really good opportunity for your sponsors to get some exposure of their product and service.
So now we move on to how we can package together some of the ideas, and I know many clubs will run sort of varieties of these packages. So let us know what works well for you, and maybe if there's something there that you haven't tried that might be worth looking into. But I just want to talk through how this model sort of connects to each other. So the social memberships, one of the keys, I guess, in reducing participation costs for members is to bring in some money outside of that group. So if you offer a social membership, and the idea there would be to target the friends and families and past players, and offer them something that connects them to the club, whether that be a key ring or some apparel, and things like that. The second one there, player sponsorships, and this is one that I'd really encourage, just because it starts to share the responsibility of attracting sponsors and bringing in revenue. It's a really big task to have a sponsorship coordinator with the responsibility of bringing in anywhere from $5,000 to maybe $15,000. That's a difficult task, but if you can share that load, that's going to be more sustainable moving forward. The other good point about having the player sponsorships is that a player might have a connection with a small business. They might connect them into the club. That business might have a really good experience, and that could lead to a major sponsor down the road, rather than just going out into the community trying to attract a $2,000 or more sponsor with no existing relationship. The business directory, so that's where your sort of interim sort of medium-sized sponsorships, and how that can connect to your social membership as well. So you provide the business access to your members, and then your members get a little discount at those services. So that's how that can tie in together. And then you've got your major sponsors where you'll use your branded assets and those major items. But yeah, let us know in the comments if these are things that you're doing, or if there's any ideas that you're getting there.
I think on your point there, Carl, you sort of touched on it with the player sponsors. The other great part of that is it's an easy entry point for businesses as well, like the $100 starting point instead of going in and asking for $500 straight away. And that's a strategy I know some clubs have used as well, where they've gone, look, it's easier to ask for $100 or $200, and they actually do a sponsor raffle. So rather than having a major sponsor and trying to get one major sponsor and a couple of small sponsors, they offer tickets to their sponsor raffle at $100 a ticket. They get 20 of them. All of a sudden, you've got $2,000, and the winner of the sponsor raffle is the major sponsor for that year. And they just find that finding a lot of small sponsors is easier than finding one big sponsor. So that's a really great initiative that's worked well at one club in our region as well.
Great point. And I guess just to touch on the COVID circumstance, one avenue that you may consider is, rather than asking for money up front, to look at more of a monthly payment plan or something like that. And maybe that's something that you could hold discussions with for prospective and returning sponsors. And there are some websites such as PayLeader or Easy Debit that you can set up sort of reoccurring things so that you sort of don't feel like you need to chase it each month. So that's just an idea. So one of the resources that we'll provide you with after this session is a template to use your club logo and your club photos to put together a sponsorship proposal document. Many may have it if you've got people with IT or graphic design skills, but I guess the point here is once we put and collate our packages together, we want to get it out into the community. So something that can get online, something that we can share across the community, print out. I know some clubs hold like a sponsorship drive or a player sponsorship drive day where they just all get out in club attire and just go door knocking to local businesses. So that's something that you could do. Getting a real large-scale club photo can be really important here, just to illustrate and demonstrate the scale or the diversity and the people that are a part of your club. And look for opportunities. I've seen a couple already where clubs have gone out and got branded face masks that everyone's wearing in Metro Melbourne and things like that. So that's an example of being pretty quick on what's happening in the landscape. And how can we connect into it? So if you've got any sort of examples of those opportunities, and throw them in there, because we'd love to hear it. But we also want to touch on the importance of, I guess, not just looking at businesses, but also your council relationships and member of parliaments and things like that. There's a lot of opportunity to bring in some sponsorship revenue through those channels as well. All right, so we'll move over to fundraising, Gabs.
Yeah, so keen to hear what some of your clubs do and what are some of your best and best could be most successful in terms of funds raised, best could be best attended, or just ones that are a little bit out of the box. I know particularly in the country areas there can be some great out of the box fundraising. Cowpat Lotto is one of my personal favourites, but we'd love to hear from you if you've got some fundraising activities. And the great thing I think about fundraising, and as Al's put in their reverse raffle, there can be some real crossover here, particularly with social functions. The reverse raffle and the iPod shuffle nights, for example, can be really good social functions as well as raising a bit of revenue for your club. So really keen to hear from you. What are some of those events or other fundraising ideas that you might have run at your club that perhaps other people may not have heard of, or even ones that you just go back to every year? Trivia night, Sarah, a great one. I think the great thing about a trivia night as well is that's something that we can promote outside of our club so that we're not asking the same people to dig into the pockets as well. A trivia night can be a great night for anyone. Kane, golf day, yes, there's a lot of crossover usually with the cricketers and the golfers, so that can always be a good day. The Pink Stumps Day, Steve, yep, fantastic, and that's raising money potentially for the club and a charity. Meat raffle, Al, I know I knew you'd be a meat raffle man, especially at the local pub if you happen, and that can be a great way again to engage your sponsor and encourage people to get down to the local pub on a Friday night to join the meat raffle, so that's a great one. Pre-season raffles, of course, the Toyota Good for Cricket raffle is money for jam as well, which can be a really good one. Friday sportsman lunch, Karen, thanks for that. So look, there's some great things coming through there. Oh, the Powerball, yep, James, that's a good one, and Punters Club. So we're starting to get into that sort of area now. Carl's got a bit of a matrix here as well. If you want to run us through that one, Carl.
Yeah, so we've just got some ideas, I guess. Some are fundraisers and some are some other ways to potentially raise money. And like I said at the start, we want to try and be diverse in our income streams so that we're not too reliant on one or two avenues. So yeah, let us know if you've got any to add to this list as you have been doing, or if there's any on there that you'd love to try. I think one important thing is, yes, we might have some successful fundraisers that have worked in the past, but still look for opportunities to add some variety and keep things fresh. I'm also really keen to know who sort of runs fundraising activities out of season and has it been successful. I think sometimes we can get a bit restricted to just sticking to our summer season, but we're a club all year long. So is anyone looking to do some off-season fundraising? And also, do you connect with any other groups for your fundraising activities? Is there anyone else you sort of like to include and participate with?
I've seen one come through, a pre-season raffle, which included a live stream of the draw. So moving with the times there, Sean. Great stuff. I like the walk-run challenge. I actually had a club I played with in Ireland, Leinster Cricket Club. They did a virtual Leinster to Lords walk, so walk the same distance that would be, and raise funds that way, which I thought was a pretty creative way to do sort of out of season. Great way of connecting with the footy club. Yeah, absolutely. Connecting with our other stakeholders and community groups. That's a great point as well, Trevor. So, yep, some great stuff coming through there as well. I imagine Punters Club runs through the off-season.
Very good. So we sort of touched on this, who to target, but with our fundraising and our revenue raising, if our goal is to reduce participation costs for our members, then we need to look outside our members to bring that money in. Otherwise, we're just going to the same well in different ways. So let us know if you've been able to connect outside your playing group well, and how you've been able to do that. Here's some examples of who you might look to target. So friends and family, work colleagues, club sponsors, government, maybe the opposition or competitors, or the footy club and things like that, the broader community, schools and universities. But we think it's a really important point that you are trying to get your activities outside the circle of your own club.
Just a quick one, Carlos. There's a good point from Sean in the chat about Taste Point, which I know a few clubs have done last year. Very easy one for those on a Thursday night. If you've got all your people coming down for training, you need about 60 people, and you can do some taste tests with meat, and then they'll basically give you $1,000. So really, really good example, and an easy one to do on a Thursday night if you've got everyone down.
That's great.
Wow.
One of those areas, I guess, where you can sort of get the message out there to the broader community is the Australian Sports Foundation. And can anyone let us know in the chat if it's a platform that you've used in the past and how you found it? Basically, it provides a fundraising platform where contributions are tax deductible for non-for-profit incorporated entities. So they're initiatives that will enhance or develop sport in Australia. And this is a good one to come back to where you've identified your needs. So if you have a really specific need, it's kind of like crowdfunding or source funding, I guess, that you can put up what you need money for, and then people can contribute and get a tax deductible receipt for that. So I've seen some clubs use it for a player development fund or a facilities fund, which is a little bit more generic, or you could get really specific in what you need as well. I also think this is a good one for that out of season fundraising for cricket clubs, just because you can really target that lead up to the end of the financial year around April and June, where people may be willing to throw a few dollars away to reduce a potential tax bill. So yeah, let us know if you have used the Australian Sports Foundation, or if you might be interested in exploring it.
This can be a great one, I think, to just have ongoing and make sure you promote at your events. So often, historically, we'd run just a quick throw together raffle at any event we run, whereas I think you can potentially have some laptops set up with your Australian Sports Foundation fund, and really encourage people to make a donation through that, promote the fact they can get that tax deduction. And it can be a good one for a past player fund as well. Past players who may have moved away and aren't able to connect as much with the club as they'd like to can contribute to a past player fund that then goes towards sponsoring a player from a disadvantaged background or something like that. I know we've had some success with a past player group sponsoring a player, and this can be a great way to organise that.
Yeah, and I was just going to touch on the reporting and the I guess the platform is quite good. The payments just go into your account each month. You don't need to sort of do anything. You can see who's made the donations, set up automated thank you messages and things like that. So yeah, encourage everyone to have a look.
Cricket's very underrepresented on that platform at the moment, so we really encourage people to get involved.
So here we've got just, a couple of others, and I know I think we touched on the Toyota Good for Sport before, so let us know if you've used that and what your success has been. I know last year some clubs raised well over $5,000 and $10,000 through that initiative. If you haven't sort of tried it before or tried it a few years ago, last year it went online, so that removed, I guess, having to deal with cash and the actual physical raffle books. And I think that made it a much easier and more seamless process. So encourage you to keep an eye out for that. And then we've got some links to the sports community resources that have some other ideas for fundraising and activities. But again, let us know what you've been doing and if you've tried any of those that we've covered so far.
Yeah, Vicky's made a point around going online ended up being a bit of a challenge for some clubs, and it's certainly something I've heard as well. It's often with change, you can sort of take a step backwards before you take two forward. So, yeah, I'd be interested in getting some more feedback from you on that, Vicky. But I know personally at my club, the person who'd driven the raffle previously wasn't as comfortable with the technology, so it might actually be an opportunity to get someone else involved where they are sort of more interested in the tech side of things. But yeah, certainly some challenges with doing it differently, but hopefully once clubs get their head around it and members, then we'll be able to see some increases there.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think one of the clubs that I saw do it well had someone walking around with an iPad at their sort of Woolworth Cricket Blast nights. And just walking up to parents and people that were around and just getting them on the spot with an iPad. So yeah, it can bring some challenges as well, technology. But I think if you've got a strategy, that will help moving forward. All right, so we've covered sponsorship and fundraising. We've got lots to get through, so we'll move on to grants and how to write successful grant applications. So there's probably 2 points that we want to reiterate through this. It's that you allow yourself enough time and that you make sure you meet the grant guidelines, objectives, and supply all the required information. That's probably the key aspects of what determines a successful from an unsuccessful grant. So if we start with the assigning points, and for those that attended the volunteer management and recruitment session last week, I think this is really illustrating what we talked about there. So the grant coordinator role, I personally think, can be one of the most important at your club, and it is one of those roles or tasks that could sit off a committee or a specific role or responsibility like the treasurer. So let us know in the comments if you have a designated grants coordinator, or is this a task that is assigned to a treasurer or someone on the committee? Let us know. But I heard the story the other day of a club that found out a mother of one of their players was assessing grant applications for a university in Melbourne. So they approached them with a role description that talked about how many hours would be involved and how it would demonstrate and how it would help the club. She said yes, and they've gone on to see their successful grant applications go through the roof. So a really good story of being able to understand the skills that are connected to your club, and then use those role descriptions that we've talked about in our last session. Some links to identify. So we'll send out this presentation with the hyperlinks, but there are some common ones. So Cricket Victoria and your region and area staff will send out grants that come up, and they're available from the Cricket Victoria website. But we've also got a number of other links with vic.gov and sport.vic. Sports community is another good one. So keep your eye out on those so that you are I guess becoming aware of what's available ahead of time and giving yourself enough time to complete them. We also really encourage you to contact the grant provider. So we'll touch on that in our next slide. But yeah, but before submitting your application, introducing yourself and just give them a little pitch of what you're thinking as a proposal and try and build the relationship, identify if that's what they're looking for. So all your grants, they will have objectives that they're trying to reach, and really you want to tie into that. And then think at the point of someone's assessing these grant applications, and say there's 500 applications, do you think it's going to improve your chances if you were one of 3 that bothered to call and introduce yourself and just check? It's one of those things I think that sounds good and people say, yeah, I should do that. But then when it comes to the time, they probably don't. But yeah, if you want to be successful in your grants, I'd strongly encourage you taking that step. Jace, you were just going to talk to our infrastructure team at Cricket Victoria and who we have there and how they're able to help in some of this area.
Just take myself off mute. Just getting myself into the right section in my slides. What slide are we on, Car?
We'd be 21, mate. Maybe while you're coming to that, Gags, we might get you to talk to how Cricket Victoria can support clubs with their council and state government relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we see councils as they really are the number one sponsor of clubs. So it's a really important partnership, not just for clubs, but for us as well. So we certainly look to help clubs create those connections, and we've recently put together a bit of a guide for some questions that you can to make sure that you're asking your council at the start of every season. We know a lot of clubs can sort of take the approach that the council's there to sort of give you the facility, hand over the keys, and that's it. But we really want to be helping clubs and councils work together to make sure that partnership's going a bit further. So if you get the club and association newsletter, there was a section in that went out yesterday around some talking points with councils, and that's also available on our website. So I highly recommend having a bit of a read of that.
Right. And yeah, Jason, was more sort of just a point on Adam and Luke's role that we have at Cricket Victoria, and how we can connect in with them.
So we've set up our government relations team, which are 2 people in particular, Adam and Luke, who are both very, very experienced in this area. Adam Renfrey has been doing a lot of work with local governments and state bodies, SRV, all those kind of bodies to help cricket grow their facilities. Had a heap of success, and also works very, very closely with the councils, understands what's required in grants, understands the timeline, what you need. Do you need to be shovel ready? Do you need your plans first? And it goes back to a little bit about what Carl was saying, getting all your information ready before you apply for the grant, so you can make the best effort for your club to get some funding. And this is where Adam can really help you through your field force staff. We can also direct you and help you as well, but we tend to lean a lot on Adam as well. And we've also got Luke Humphreys, who's been working very, very closely as well at state government level. Most recently been doing a lot of stuff on the COVID return to play with our member services team. So both very, very experienced in this area, and they're there to help. They're there to help our clubs improve our nets and our grounds and our pavilions and all those kind of things. So make sure you tap into those resources, which are you can always either find them on our website or contact through our field force, who we introduced at the start. Yeah.
Thanks,
I think it's just important to note that's really focused around facilities and infrastructure with the Australian Cricket Infrastructure Fund and things like that. And the other thing I'd point out is Luke, in his role, has helped us with the COVID grants, the short-term grants, where we've had I believe over 700 cricket clubs successful with those. So some really great examples there of how those partnerships with governments are really important.
Yeah, great points. And I think we're just saying to engage with us, like we want to support and help you through this process. And one resource that we will provide you with is the infrastructure guidelines document that has, all the best practice for new nets and facilities and change rooms and all that. So we'll provide that resource after this session. Great. So yeah, touching on and just wrapping up some of the grant stuff. So like I said, you want to allow yourself sufficient time and make sure you're meeting the grant objectives and supplying all the requested information. But that fourth point is one I sort of want to highlight as well. Yes, you might want new nets, but what does that do for the community, and why? Firstly, you need to demonstrate your increased in participation. That's a common one. But then go a little bit further to say, well, what does that provide to your community? So making supported claims and using evidence for your statements is really important, especially when it comes to the costings and the payment of where the cash will go. I did mean to make the point as well of trying to demonstrate a co-contribution, which is really well received, as it really highlights your commitment to your project.
The other thing there with that community benefit, do you have a local school that uses your nets as well? So that will be an extra group that's benefiting from something like that. The other point I'd make too is just when we talk about making sure that you understand what the grant wants, also and how important planning is. If we've got a really sound strategy of what our club wants to achieve, sometimes I think we can end up applying for grants that maybe aren't exactly what fit with our club just because we think we need the money. If we've got a really strong idea of the things that we want to achieve as a club, it can be a bit easier for us to go, yes, this grant fits in with what we're already planning, instead of every time a grant comes up going, okay, what can we do to make sure we get this grant? Let's actually pick the grants that we're applying for based on what we're wanting to achieve as a club as well, because that makes sure that we're spending time on grants where we've got a better chance of being successful as opposed to just applying for the sake of applying.
Fantastic. So yeah, we've covered off our revenue raising, and we've just got a few points on financial management. So like I said, if we're going to put all this effort, all these hours into revenue, well, we want to make sure that we're effectively managing the money that we do have. So our first slide, and I know the majority will have a budget, but my first point's a question. What's your markup on your items such as the bar or the canteen, your apparel? Do you look to make money off those? And if so, if you could just let us know what percentage that would be. If you don't have a budget, or if you want to have a look at the template that we've got here, or different ones, we can provide them with you. But if we're going to manage our money well, we need to have an idea of what we're forecasting to spend, what we're actually spending, and where that money's going. But yeah, let us know in the comments what your markup is as a general rule. We've heard sort of 60% as a rule of thumb. So maybe if you're well below that, you might want to consider that, or at least have a discussion with your committee. The next slide is maybe some things to look out for, some common faults that we see from time to time, and many of these deal with cash or having one person responsible for ordering and looking after the money and the items of value. So agreements made without consultation, really important one, I guess, looking at contracts potentially for the upcoming season. And a lot of it just comes back to awareness and communication. So if there's any there that might be an issue for you, it might just be a good time to consider reviewing your practice. many of those issues on the last slide can be mitigated by going online, moving your cash or your reporting online. It can significantly reduce the risk of theft, but also save volunteers time and effort and create a better experience for members. Gags, you're going to talk to the online registration process.
Yeah, just really quickly on that. We know there's been frustrations, I guess, in the past with that, and particularly with the My Cricket Help Desk last year probably being understaffed. So just wanting to let people know that's really being a focus this year. Whilst we've still got another year using the My Cricket system, and therefore there won't be too many significant upgrades, certainly bug fixes and making it usable. But we will be having more staff on the help desk this year, so they will be your first port of call for any trouble that you have with My Cricket and online registration. So just wanting to assure clubs that we recognise that what happened last year wasn't good enough, and it wasn't a good experience for clubs, and making sure that this year that will be a better experience. So My Cricket will be the help desk, will be your first port of call there. And just quickly, Kane said, I heard My Cricket will not be doing online payments as of 2021.
Part payments, Gags.
Yeah, so part payments. So for this season, part payments will not be available, just because the system's so old and it's kind of been built upon. Sometimes when you change one thing in the system, it has a domino effect, and one of those things is part payments. So what we've done is we'll be removing the part payment function purely because to try and remove the issues that it created elsewhere. We will be providing suggestions on how you can do a workaround for that, I suppose, and we won't be. Online payments will still be available, but what we're saying is if you need part payments, you will be able to take offline payments to cater for that, because we understand that part payments are probably going to be an important part of your club for this year, with people potentially being out of work and such. So there are the key points there.
Gags. I'm really keen to hear about if anyone's set up an online store to sell memberships or club apparel, and how you've gone about that, what platform you might have used. So if you could let us know in the comments, that'd be great, because I think that's an area that the majority of clubs could get better at and move towards. And also let us know what you're using as your point of sale. Are you using Square or the Commonwealth Bank payless cash receiver? Let us know. Xero is a sort of accounting software. So yes, there's things that you can do. Some come at a cost, but I guess the value is trying to make things a bit more simpler and giving more line of sight around where the money's going. Some people using TMAP, that's good to see. Let us know, is that seamless? Has that worked pretty well? Has there been any issues? What are you selling through there? Is that apparel or membership? So I'd really be keen to hear about that.
And we'll certainly be looking to incorporate that in the new system when My Cricket is replaced. But really quickly, because I know we're running short on time, what is the biggest expense at your club? And I think the key question here to really to get us maybe thinking a bit more when we're talking budgets is, how do you assess your return on investment from the things that you're spending money on in your club? So Kane's jumped in with one of the number one responses we get for this, which is balls. So that can be a big expense for the club. Obviously something you need. So the return on investment there is players being able to train and play, because you need that for them. Yep, Angela's agreed there.
Yeah, I think it's a good one to potentially go to sponsors with, in saying that this is an essential item that we need to play the game. It's a fixed cost. We can't go to different suppliers because the association might mandate who you need to go through. And then if they have that understanding, and if you demonstrate the cost that it is and what percentage it is of your revenue, they might say, oh, wow, you actually do need this money. You've clearly illustrated that.
Steve makes a good point with the biggest expense for some clubs being player payments, and that's certainly, I guess what we're getting to, Steve, with that, how do you assess your return on investment? So, for example, if you're putting a massive investment into coaches, that's probably a great investment because you're investing in developing your players and ensuring that your players have a good experience. Whereas if you're investing in a player that's coming over for 1 year and maybe doesn't have any requirements to give back to the club and then disappears, what's been the return from the money that's been put into that? So definitely encouraging clubs to think with those big expenses, what are you getting back as a club, and what are your members and participants getting back with their experience? Curation, yep, obviously an important one, and that's obviously, as Carl has said, one of those things which you need to have a good experience. So are there ways that we can sell that to sponsors to say, you know, we need money to make sure that we're putting a good facility for our members.
Yeah, and I think now is probably more timely than ever to be assessing our return on investment. And if it is a conversation about a non-essential expense like player payments, just reviewing that and really having some honest conversations about what return are we getting. I've often personally thought about, well, what would happen if clubs halved their player payment expenses and then just put that money towards running the absolute best social functions you can possibly think of? Like, what would that do to the club environment, club culture? Could that actually attract more players than offering the money that you're currently doing? So one to consider, I guess. So that sort of wraps up most of the content. So if you could please just let us know in the chat any questions, maybe if there's anything we haven't covered or things on your mind. But also if you could let us know if there was any gems, any good bits of information that you feel that you've got out of the session. We'll collate all the responses and the feedback that you've provided. We're using this to create resources that'll be used across the state. We'll send out some of the resources that we've developed, which is the template for the sponsorship proposal, a partnership and fundraising kit, and that infrastructure guidelines that talks about best practice for nets and facilities and things like that. We'll provide you with the slides and a recording of the session, and we also really encourage you to complete the post-webinar survey just to let us know. We're putting these on to provide value and support volunteers, and we need to know if it's hitting the mark. So please be honest in your feedback. We would appreciate that. But I'll hand over to Jace to run through the last sort of slides, which is sort of talking about where we're at with Cricket Victoria, and then we'll wrap up from there.
Just give him a second to unmute himself, Jace. He might be.
Excellent. Very good. I'm managing a Year 7 textiles class at the same time who's making a pom-pom. So bear with me. That's why I've been a little bit slow. But the new structure, Cricket Victoria have also felt the effects of COVID. So we've had quite a bit of change in the way we're structured up now. We've got 12 field staff members that service 4 areas, okay? And the regions, the structure of the regions hasn't changed at all. They are still exactly as they were, but they will be serviced slightly different. So in the Northwest, they look after 4 regions across the top there in green. The Southwest look after 5 in the inner west there, and they go out into Geelong and up to Central Highlands there and Ballarat as well. The east there is the only metro area, and that runs all the way from basically inner southeast all the way out to outer east. Then we've got the southeast area, which all of our staff are from, except for Carl, of course. And we're covering the 4 regions, which is Southeast Country, Southern Metro, Gippsland, and of course Southern Bayside as well. So the way we're structured now, we've got an area manager that oversees the whole area, cricket manager, and also a cricket officer, and we all work very, very closely with the associations and the LGAs to help support cricket in the area. We've also got member services as well. We did touch on those as well. Paul Milo is the manager of the member services area. We've got competition management. They look after Premier Cricket, women's competition, playing rules and fixtures, and obviously umpires and appeals and tribunals. Also COVID-19 response as well, which has been, all of us are going to need plan A, plan B, and plan C with COVID and how we adapt our cricket competitions to our new environment. Also, association club support, which is really, really important. Obviously, their focus is off the field. Leadership and support to peak bodies, so BCCL and Victorian Metropolitan Cricket Union, and the field staff as well. They also work closely with Cricket Australia. The club toolbox, is that still me, Carl? Yes. I might handball over to you for this one, Carl.
Yeah, sure. Or Al, did you want to take this one, mate?
Yeah, happy to. Look, this is the club toolbox, which I'm sure many of you use regularly or are aware of, but for those that don't, there's plenty of resources out there available that you can use to support you in your day-to-day administration. So the Cricket Victoria website, the Community Cricket website, the Facebook pages are updated regularly. So have a look out for your region pages, and the new Community Game Changers group on Facebook as well, where local administrators are connecting up and sharing some of your knowledge and resources. So I think that'll be a really important one moving forward, and for people that are looking to connect in as fellow volunteers. And then, as Gag sort of touched on earlier, the My Cricket Support Help Desk, which can be reached at 1-800-CRICKET, is going to be ramped up for the season ahead. So we've listened to the feedback, and there should be a lot more support out there available for you, as well as your region contacts that were on the page of the slide before.
Which brings us to our last slide. So thanks very much again for everyone for attending and giving us your time. We do know it's valuable, and we really appreciate you jumping on, and particularly those who've been with us for 2 webinars now. Really appreciate that. We do actually have more coming in the series, so please keep an eye out for these. We'll advertise them much as we have these ones through our region Facebook pages and the club and association newsletter. And we'll be uploading the resources that you'll get sent direct to your email. They'll also be uploaded on the website following the completion of each lot of webinars, and once those resources are prepared. So keep an eye on there, and yeah, thanks very much again. Massive thanks to Carl and his partner in crime, Tony, who led the collation of this presentation and made it really easy for us as regions to host and have you on board today. So thanks very much again, and we hope you found it beneficial. James. He's usually pretty good at turning his camera off, James. Thanks for your lovely feedback, Sarah, by the way. Really appreciate it. I hope you liked having your quote on our little advertisement. Thanks, Shona. We're putting a lot of work into those extra resources, so we do really hope that they'll be beneficial. You too, Shona. Have a great week. I'll see you tonight, actually, I think.
You happy for me to stop the recording, everyone?
Yeah, you're right. Al, you can turn that off now, mate.
No worries. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.